So today we're taking a look at the ScaleTrains Rivet Counter HO Scale EMD SD40-2, and it's owned by Burlington Northern, which is the predecessor to BNSF, and it comes in this green scheme with the white face, and it's from the 1990s, so it's a bit dated. Anyways, let's get started here in the front. So the front of the cab is painted in white, and it's called the white face for increased visibility, while the rest of it is painted in this green color, which is relatively darker than I originally thought it was going to be. I thought it would come in this lime green color, but it's more like a dark green. And then on top we have the number board 6350, headlights in the middle, and windows with windshield wipers. And on the left there is a door to access the cab with this battery box step up. Then on the hood we have a grab iron and a sand filler hatch. Bit interesting, they left the bottom of it black. Usually they'll be painted all the same color. And the top has this black anti-glare paint. Then on the nose we have the big BN logo, some grab irons, some other details molded in. And the side has a ratchet handbrake, which is cool. You can see a bit of the chain. Then on the other side we have the circular air vent and this label, which I'm not sure what that's about. And an interesting thing about the walkway is that there's like lines on the sides, so I guess they made it a separate piece. Then we got some stanchions in the front with some bottom ditch lights and this MU receptacle with this hose going downwards. Now the ditch lights are actually strobe lights, so they do flash, at least in real life, and it was an experimental design. It also comes with this drop step in the front, which can swing upwards, so it is functional, although I'm not really comfortable moving it more than this because I don't want to break anything. Then the bottom plow is very nicely detailed and crisp. And here we got the ScaleTrains metal knuckle coupler, train line hose, and the plow actually has these inner walls in the middle. Haven't really seen that before. Then we got the MU hoses on the sides, some labels, and the coupler cut lever. And then in the step wall it says step up to safety, which there are 4 steps with see-through etched metal, along with this diagonal bar. And then we have the cab section where there are these lift-off hinges. I've never seen that before. Then we got the wind deflector with the side view mirror at the very bottom, and the top has a sunshade, which sticks out the sides, and the windows do open up, although the one in the front is pretty stiff compared to the rear one, which is super loose. And this does come with a cab interior. There's 2 seats for the conductor and brakeman, while the other side has the control stand for the engineer. Then we got the big BN logo, Burlington Northern. Usually the road number is written here, but on this locomotive it's in the rear, 6350. Then on the battery box we have this cute American flag with yellow ribbon, tassel, and it's assigned to the Springfield, Missouri depot. And on the builder's plate, it says it's built in LaGrange, Illinois by Electromotive Division, which was owned by GM or General Motors. Then in the front of the sill, it says F for front, and the locomotive type SD40-2, and these white conspicuity stripes spread out across the sill. And then underneath we have a 3-axle HTC truck, very nicely detailed. It's also interesting to see that brake chain that works with the handbrake, and there's an axle generator for the speed recorder. Check out the brake lines, and they also have a hanging steel bell and sanding lines which go all the way to the wheel. Now if you move the truck it does hit it, but at least it's flexible. Then up here we have a jacking pad, and the wheels are painted in rust colored brown. They also have an EMD logo and some writing, HD57 only guys, and it has Hayat bearing caps. That's pretty crazy, you can read this. And some more writing over here. Then we have the inertial air filter and the traction motor blower duct, just curved at the top, and the cab window has a windshield wiper and the electrical cabinet air filter box. Then in the middle we have the dynamic brake vents, these 2 fans at the top. Pretty much what it looks like, and you can see all these molded in door latches and hinges. And I did find it interesting that they painted white only above the trucks, but the middle part they just left green. Then here we have an air reservoir tank and the fuel tank, which does have some details like this drain pipe in the front. We have the emergency fuel cutoff switch, the fuel fill, and a vertical fuel gauge. We also got this brown thing, which let me know in the comments what this is. Another thing about the SD40 is they have this raised walkway, and it's a blower duct to cool down the rear traction motors. See the railing goes up as well, and that will connect with this chute. Then here we have the rear truck. Looks like there's some piping in the back of this. Now there is one issue where the siding line just sticks out so much, especially if you compare it with the front truck. It should be aligned with the wheel, so this is not really ideal. Well, that actually rhymed. Then at the top we have the radiator fans and these chicken wire air intakes, which they are not see-through. Interesting thing I noticed though, there are these tiny lift rings on the side, and on the sill there's a bit of text. It says PNT 8-90. Now in the very back, here are the rear steps. Then we have this pretty open platform, not much happening there. Then the back of the hood, we have the headlights, number boards, and grab iron ladder. They also plugged out the holes for the class lights. Then at the bottom, we have a lot of similar detail in the front. But there are these MU hose catch trays, which are also hollow on the sides. And there also are these spare knuckle coupler holders. And the train line hose, it does stick out like this. We also have that functional drop step. So apparently it can go all the way up here, and you just drop it like this. It's also interesting, there's a little guard here only on this side. And now for the engineer's side, it does have this water sight glass. There is a small window to check the water level, which is used for cooling, and some more labels. And then here's a look at the truck on this side. There is this bit that sticks out, which can hold a chain. In the back of the fuel tank, there is a waste retention tank. Then if we move further down, we have a side access door, danger, high voltage, these two random holes, and this bolted up panel. Then in the back of the cab, we have a doorway, windshield wiper, some steps. Then here's a look at the front. It's basically the same thing. Just in the corner, there are some spitter valves. Close up, you can see the bolts. But yeah, that's about it. Now let's go take a look at the roof. So here it is from up top. So in the front, you can see the walkway treading, the latches and the battery boxes. Then on top of the cab, we have this Leslie RS3KR horn. They actually make these out of brass. Then we have a firecracker antenna made by Motorola. We have some lift rings. And there is this panel at the top, a vent. Then next we have a turbo exhaust stack, which you can see a bit inside. Then we have a bunch of fans, which you can see the silver fan blades inside. They're kind of deep in the grill. And there's a T-vent between the fans. And then in the rear we have this curved grab iron and a sand filler hatch. Alright, now let's go check out the bottom. So here's the movement of the truck. And we got some room behind the plow. Got the bell on this side, and the fuel tank has this tubular structure. It is kind of bumpy. You can see the waste tank, it's off to this side. And then here's the rear. Alright, so I also brought in my ScaleTrains CSX SD40-3, which is a rebuild of the SD40-2. So if you compare them side by side, you can see they rebuilt the cab so it's a lot more boxy on the edges, and it's nicknamed the SpongeBob Square Cab, while this one has a more standard sloped design. Also, if you look at the nose, it has a simple pentagon shape, while this one has a more angular appearance, and there's a plate on top, which is not present in the original. Then for the cab roofs, the Dash 3 has a more modern PDC antenna with the Sinclair ice skates, while the Dash 2 has this older firecracker antenna. And if you compare it from the front, the CSX has this modern ditch lights. You can see it's a lot larger than the strobe lights, which was an experimental thing before ditch lights. Also, this one has a front drop step, which is not present on this one, it's just an anti-climber. And the bottom plow is diagonal. It's a different style from the BN. And if you look at the truck, there is a speed recorder on the first axle, and the brake chain for the handbrake, which is in the nose. While on the CSX, there is no speed recorder, and there's no handbrake in the hood. Instead, it's mounted in the rear on a brake stand, which is connected to these chains. The old ScaleTrains model, they use actual chains, but on this one, it's just fixed. Another difference are the wheels. They're painted this rust color, but a few years ago, they just left it silver metal. The Dash 3 also has a newer E-bell, while the Dash 2 uses a steel bell. Now if you compare the layouts of the Dash 2 versus the Dash 3, it's pretty much the same. Almost everything lines up. But one thing you might notice, the newer era locomotives, they have a lot of these safety stickers. But this one from the 90s, it's just empty here. Kind of boring, to be honest. I think labels would make this look a lot more interesting. Now when I first got this locomotive, one of the things that stood out to me is that on this older ScaleTrains model, this top part actually bends inside. Because the interior is hollow, so it's kind of weak. So this is one of the flaws holding it. But they seem to address this issue in the newer ScaleTrains model. They just made it all solid, so that is a lot more robust. Now if you compare the rears, the Dash 2 had these chicken wire radiator grills, while the Dash 3 had these corrugated ones. They stick out a lot more. Now in the older ScaleTrains models, they did have a drop step, but it wasn't really functional, it was just molded into the frame. While in the newer ScaleTrains, it appears to be functional. It's also interesting they moved the MU receptacle from on top of the deck and just left it at the bottom here in the middle. And they also have these lifting holes, which is not present on the BN. And then from the other side, you can see it still has that water sight glass on both models, but the design for the spitter valves are different. They also added some louvers inside the cab, which wasn't in the original SD40-2. So I also got the Thrall 86-foot high cube double plug door boxcar, and it's owned by ATSF Santa Fe Railway. And it's a bit older, coming from the 1980s era, and it's a pretty long car, I think one of the longest boxcars ever made, and it was designed to transport auto parts. But yeah, let's get started here in the front. So on the end on top there is this white stripe because it is an excess height car and there is no running board. So if you look at the roof, there's no walkway, but this car originally did have them, but they had to remove it for safety reasons. There was a ruling in 1966 6 that ban rooftop walkways, unless it needs to be accessible like covered hoppers and tank cars. You'll still see walkways on those. Then after that we got the car number and some rivet detail. Then the rest of the face has this corrugation. It's pretty smooth and wavy. A pair of grab irons in the middle and some text, which is all legible stenciling. There also is a tack board and a walkway platform. It's made of see-through etched metal, although it's a bit strange as full width. Maybe that's just how they did it in the old days. And there is a ScaleTrains metal knuckle coupler with a train line hose running underneath, and there's a coupler cut lever. There's also a pair of grab irons underneath the platform, which I didn't know would be a thing. Now to go across the side, so in the corner, there is a slot indent with some kind of legal text of ownership. And at the bottom we got this ladder with a stirrup step. There's a phrase, "It's up to you," and some more car information. It exceeds the plate F loading gauge, and some more warnings down at the bottom. And there's a random loop hanging underneath. They also have these really tiny conspicuity stripes. They go out throughout the car. And now for the truck, it does come with rotating bearing caps, and it's a Barber S2A. Now there's some additional details like this random graphic, and this car is too high to clear the St. Clair Tunnel in Huron, Michigan, although they did replace it in 1995 with a second tunnel, which can handle double stack containers. So this went empty, returned to Pontiac, so a lot of the auto industry was around Michigan. Then next we got the big Santa Fe cross logo. So after that, in the middle we got the double plug doors, painted silver, and the door latches are separately applied pieces. Even these bars here on the side, it's not molded in, you can see there is a little gap. Then we got some molded in rivets and stenciling, and at the bottom they have a door lock you twist to open and close. And there's also an L because it's the left side of the car, and the bottom has these door rollers, goes on the rails which are see-through. There's also a tack board and a mini one. Then here is the other side. I really like this font. It's a super shock control, which Santa Fe added a cushioned underframe to this car. This car also has the old ACI label, which were these colored barcodes to automatically identify rail cars. Then next we got the COT stencil, and this boxcar class is BX112. There also is a little hook at the bottom. So that's it for the side. Now we're going to look at the BN, which has the brake wheel, very thin, has a chain going down to the platform. And then for the right side, it's pretty much the same. Just at the bottom, there is a label saying retaining valve, although I'm not sure what's it pointing to, maybe the pipe. And there's this molded in piece here. Got the R for right side, but I think that's about all the differences. Now let's go check out the roof. So here it is from above. Lots of these corrugated panels with some rivet details molded in. And the edges of the roof have this overspray paint, which at first I thought was a mistake, but after talking to some people in ScaleTrains, they told me it's actually normal, especially on these older boxcars. And now let's take a look at the bottom. You have that coupler on the end, and the piping for the air brake system is actually fully fleshed out. Goes along the entire side wall. And then here is the bogie. It's an older style truck, so these brake beams are kind of stubby. And there's also a spring, which is just molded in, and it's part of the super shock control I was talking about earlier. This car is also a bit unique. It has these rails sticking out the bottom, I guess to make room for the cushioning system, and it is visible from the profile view. Then we got the air reservoir tank on this side. Very fine wires. And then here's the other end with that line for the handbrake. So I just wanted to give a brief comparison with my other boxcars. Here's my Bachmann Western Maryland cushion car. It's very old. You can tell because it has this ladder and this rooftop walkway, which as I said before, these were actually banned from the 70s and 80s, at least on boxcars. And that's why they specified it doesn't have a running board. It was during that transitionary period. So all modern boxcars, they don't have walkways. Now if we compare it to the 60-foot TTX boxcars, you could just see how much of a monster 86-foot is. And here it is compared to the Western Maryland car, very tiny. Now out of all these cars, 60-foot boxcar is actually the most common these days, a nice Goldilocks size. And for the end platforms, you could just see how wide this is, while present day cars are more narrow. Also, if you look at the couplers, this one has that bottom shelf, which helps keep the train coupled during derailments, and it's also a long shank, while this older car doesn't have that. Although it did come with some spare long shank if you want to swap it out. And if you look at the roofs, they actually have a pretty similar corrugation design. And again, you can see that oversprayed edge versus a clean look. So now together we have Burlington Northern and Santa Fe. So let's go test them on the layout. So for my final thoughts, the ScaleTrains Rivet Counter Burlington Northern SD40-2, it has a pretty cool white face scheme, and finally we got one of the major railroads from the past, and I had no idea it would come with these smaller experimental strobe lights, which are smaller than modern day ditch lights. In DC though, they just act normally, there's no flashing. This model is excellently detailed with the printing, the trucks, the movable drop steps, the handbrake with the chain, chicken wire radiator grills, and even these cab lift-off hinges. Now for the cons, when I was trying to take it out of the packaging, they added a bit too much styrofoam that it went to the very edge and the fit was super tight, so I had a really hard time opening it up. Usually this isn't an issue. Another thing is the cab windows. Originally when I got it, the windows were open all the way and I had to close them, but one of the windows in the front is just really stuck in there, while the one in the rear was super loose. I just wish it was more consistent. But overall, I think it's a great locomotive, especially if you're looking for an SD40-2, which is one of the most popular American freight locomotives. ScaleTrains did a pretty good job. And lastly, for the Thrall 86-foot Santa Fe boxcar, it's quite massive and the longest boxcar in my collection. I usually just go for a modern rolling stock, but I was curious on how this would turn out. Since it's from the 1980s, it does have some older characteristics like the ACI barcode label, the mentioning of removing rooftop walkways, and the roof has paint oversprayed on the edges, which I was originally confused about if it was intentional or not, but apparently it was pretty common in those days. They don't really mention it in the product description, but it's really there if you pay close attention to the artwork. It's a very subtle change. This car is also interesting because it has the super shock control with the cushioned underframe and the springs molded in, and I've never seen the beams coming out the bottom like that before. The car is fully detailed with separately applied parts, text is legible under magnification, rolls decently, although it's recommended you use a 24-inch radius curve. It's a big fella, and I love the Santa Fe livery. It's pretty cool. I would recommend it if you're interested in getting a car in this era, and a huge thanks to ScaleTrains for sponsoring this video. If you want these, they are currently still in stock on their website, scaletrains.com. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, hit the like button. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.